and welcome back to Crush It with the Cosacks. This episode is Crush It with COVID Part 2.
Part 2, baby.
So my name is Lily Kosak, and this is my husband, Blaine Kosak, and we just like to crush it when it comes to different things such as health, real estate, business, and family. We're here to tell you a little bit about our second investment property that we purchased.
Yeah, so this is part 2 from our last episode where we were talking about crushing it with COVID and all the things that we worked on and how we educated ourselves during that time of the pandemic. If you remember from the last episode, we talked about a lot of the different things that happened during COVID, but then how we really jumped into educating ourselves and then finally took the leap of faith and bought that first project.
The Orange House.
The Orange House in Plainfield, Illinois. But today we're going to talk about our second project. The first project was beautiful. Everything worked out absolutely as planned. But tell them about Maple, Leela.
So Maple was an interesting story. My mom had sent us the property when she saw it. It was in a neighboring area to where we all lived, close to my parents, close to us, about the halfway point between the two of us. Really awesome neighborhood. We had lived in there for 7 years, so we knew the area very, very well.
Definitely an A-class neighborhood, I would say.
Yes, and very close to the downtown area, which is highly preferred. But the property was quite above our budget at the time. It was pretty high considering what our budget was.
It was listed at, I think, $225.
No, it was higher.
I don't think so.
I thought it was $265.
Definitely wasn't $265. It was like $225, I believe, or $229 is what it was listed at.
You're wrong.
I'm going to pull this up and I'm going to put a screenshot right in the screen showing the listing price. We'll see.
Anyway, I initially, when we came across it later, we did see it around $229, but about months before, my mom had seen the property and sent it to us, but it was much higher at the time. And our budget was like right around $200,000 is what we were really wanting to play with.
For our second property.
Correct.
Because we are still, remember, we're putting 20% down. We're using straight conventional loans. And with the last property, we used Lily to be the person who held the loan. So she took a conventional loan only in her name. So now this is a strategy we use all the time, especially if you have a W-2 job. If you and your partner have a W-2 job and you want to get into real estate investing, when you buy that first house, if you can, don't buy it together. Don't put both of your names on it because then both of your debt to income ratio get hit. So make sure you put it on one person's name if possible. And this is why our budget was a little bit lower, because we wanted Robert, her dad, to hold the loan because he has a very good W-2. He also has really good credit. So we were able to get a loan pre-approval for, like I said, I think it was right around $200, like you said.
Yes, most definitely. So anyway, we ended up offering, I don't know, like
$165
something. It didn't get accepted, but then ultimately Blaine did some negotiating and we did finally get the property accepted at $185. But this property was very, very interesting.
There was a lot of, again, pedal to the metal over here. And then, Robert and Scarlett, they were very nervous and timid in the first, when we got the first property, and that property it went perfect. So now everybody's like, let's get the next one. Let's go. But I walk in and I see just lots of work. It's on a busy street, which was number one that I was a little bit concerned about. There's no fenced yard, but it did have a nice yard. The whole inside needed to be completely remodeled. And
the kitchen basically ended here.
You couldn't even open the door.
It's like a one-person kitchen.
Yeah, it was tiny. You come in from the backyard. If you walked in the back door, the door hit the stove, and you had to squeeze in. So there was a lot. I knew it needed a lot of work, which again we weren't afraid of. We weren't scared of that. But the biggest concern I had was
The staircase.
The wonderful spiral staircase that they made on their own, I think.
The red staircase.
It was a red staircase. It was in the middle of basically the living
house.
room.
Yeah,
It was, and that was, but there was a door to get into the basement from outside. So I think their reasoning behind it was the laundry's down in the basement. I don't want to go outside to go down to the basement to do laundry. Let's cut a hole in the floor and make. My kids had a hard time getting down there.
Like, yeah, I mean, I had a hard time getting down there myself, and then there was no way you could have gone down there with a laundry basket. So I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know how they would
use a pulley, and they were like roping things down. I don't know, but the first step. I mean, I have a size 13 foot. My heel couldn't even could barely get onto the first step. They were all triangles, as you know, a spiral staircase goes, but like. I was like, this is going to be a nightmare. So we were trying to figure out where would we even put it? Like, where could we move the stairs? We had to put a staircase. So technically, this house was 3 bedrooms, but realistically, it was 2 and a pass-through bedroom. Remember?
Right. Mm-hmm.
So like you walk in the main living area. You have your living area, little dining room, and this tiny little kitchen boxed into the corner, and then you go to the left, you have your bathroom after you jump over the spiral staircase down to the floor, and then you go into a bedroom, and then you walk into another bedroom, but to get to the third bedroom you had to go through that bedroom. So try to picture that. So what we decided to do was we would move the staircase into that second bedroom, right?
Yeah, and like you guys, this took a little bit of preparation because we did say that we were putting in lowball offers. But at the time, we were actually renovating our personal residence. This was our second personal residence. We were doing something called a live and flip, which you just live in the home and you fix it up while you're living there. And we did have a contractor that was working on our kitchen. So we did ask him if he could go down and give us a quote while we were just looking at the house. So I believe this was pre-inspection, right?
Yeah, it was definitely, we had him go ahead of time. And I know you mentioned lowball offers. I don't really like to use that term lowball offer because we put in an offer that worked for us. Like, I don't think we went and said, oh, like we could buy this house for $195. Let's throw an offer at $150. I don't think we were just throwing lowball offers like that. I think we were crunching numbers and we were like, okay, this is a number that would work. So that's just one thing I want to touch on a little bit. But yes, our contractor who was working in our kitchen, good guy, did a great job. He did multiple jobs for us. He went over there and gave us a quote. I think initially it was like $80,000, and then it ended up going up to $100,000. Total, like all in. Like
I think initially he just gave us the quote for the stairs. And then I think you did ask him to break down the kitchen a little bit.
Yeah, because we knew right away, like, we weren't going to be able to do all this work on our own. The last house, we did almost all of it. So
we did a lot of work at this house on our own.
Oh yeah, no, don't get me wrong. We weren't going to be able to do all of it. But so he came in. We knew right away this kitchen had to be completely refigured. The stairs had to be completely moved. We ended up the siding, the windows. We had to rearrange some windows.
The deck. He built a new deck.
New deck out back. And we took down 2 walls, which Lily actually ripped down some of the walls on her own, which we'll show you some footage of that, which was pretty cool. But they had to put a beam up in the ceiling in order to completely open the space. And when we got the budget, he said $80,000. We were crunching the numbers.
No, we paid him $80,000, but there was the additional $20,000 was all the material and then our own work.
Okay, yeah. So
because we had to order appliances and everything like that, and so it came out to $100,000 total.
So purchase price we ended up getting it for was $185,000, right? We put $100,000 in, so that's $285,000, and then at the end when it was all done, I'm just gonna run through the numbers right now.
It appraised for $395,000.
Appraised for $395,000. We were hoping for it. I think we were trying to get $415,000. It appraised at $395,000, which I was so mad. This appraisers. So we had an appraisal on our other house recently, right before this appraisal, and they're in the same exact neighborhood. One house, they adjusted the price. Now, as a if you're not unfamiliar how an appraiser works, they compare homes to help understand the value of the home. And they try to find homes that are very similar. So they look the same style, same size, same bedroom, same bathrooms. And then from there, they adjust based on the quality, the kitchen. They based on if it has a garage or a basement. Well, they also adjust based on a busy street or yard. So the other home that we used to live in Downers Grove was on a two yellow street. So I don't even know what that means in
Two-way
terms of
street.
streets, but he deducted value from that house because it was a double yellow. And it was a very residential street. I think the speed limit was 20 miles an hour, maybe 25.
25 maybe.
And he deducted it by, I think, $15,000. So we were automatically expecting that to happen with this house. So I kind of factored that in. Well, that didn't happen. It was great. I looked at the adjustment. She only gave it a $5,000 adjustment, which this street is 40 miles an hour, 4-lane road, and she only adjusted it by 5,000. But she adjusted it significantly for the square footage, and she didn't give us anything in regards to adding a basement bathroom and a bedroom with an egress window. So like some of the comparables that I showed her, she didn't even use because the square footage wasn't exactly the same. But I can go on a rant about appraisers like for another hour. So if you want to chat and talk about how much you get annoyed with appraisers sometimes, just shoot me a text and I'll be glad to jump on that call. But anyways, back to the rehab. There's no way I'm going to be able to move stairs, right? I can help lay the wood and nail it.
I think you can do anything.
Well, thank you, baby. That's great. But when it comes to figuring out how to put staircase in, that is not my expertise. When it comes to demoing walls, call up Lily. She's got that down. When it comes to putting a beam in the ceiling, we can't do that. So, once you start doing rehab work, you know what you can and you can't do. One thing so we're still at this stage, right, where we're trying to do it all on our own. And we know we can't do some of this stuff. So we're trying to negotiate with our contractor. Well, what if we do this? How much can you take off the price? So like we told him, we'll demo the walls upstairs. How much can you take off? I told him down in the basement, we wanted to finish the whole thing. I'll put all the 1x2s on every single joist. How much is that going to save?
What are 1x2s?
1x2s are almost like little pieces of wood like this. So it pads the ceiling to cover the pipes and electrical. So when you put drywall down, you can't just throw it up there because there's pipes and everything. You have to pad it so that it's a little bit lower so that it covers all the pipes and electrical and everything. So I told him I would do all that. And we're trying to gauge how much money that would save us. In the long run, we probably should have just have him do it.
I know. Yeah.
And I think Lily was telling us all.
Reflecting back on it, just because we are doing this at scale, this project that we're telling you guys about was 4 years ago. This was our second main project. And now we typically have, 2 to 3 going at one time. So obviously we're not physically, capable of doing physical work like
being in 3 places at
once. For that to be done. But ultimately, yeah, if you give your contractors more work, and a lot of times it just ends up being cheaper, because what happens is the project took much longer. So there's holding costs involved. So holding costs are essentially you have to pay a mortgage every single month that you have that property, instead of either selling the property if you were going to flip it, or renting it out. And so every month you have this mortgage. So now you have to pay for the mortgage out of pocket. And so those things add up too. And that project took us 5 months. So essentially what our awesome contractor, Thomas and his crew did was they rehabbed the entire upstairs, and I believe they drywalled downstairs. But then the basement, he did framing and a window and things like that.
They did a lot of work.
You know, we basically painted, and Blaine rehabbed
I
the
tiled the whole
the bathrooms, right? So the two bathrooms Blaine tiled,
Not
and
doing tile ever again.
my dad put in all those toilets. Remember, he was like the toilet guy.
All those toilets.
It was like 4 toilets in 1 month. He like installed toilets. So we were,
One thing I just came to my mind. I'm surprised I haven't blocked this out of my head forever. Was the floor, like that kitchen floor. That he's like, oh, if you rip up all this floor, like we can throw all the new flooring down. He's like, I could take off X amount of dollars. I don't even remember it. I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. That was a nightmare.
You pulled it off?
Yeah, I was sitting there just yanking on this old floor that was in there, and it took, I just remember, like, it was hard work, but it was like kind of gratifying because you could see like pieces of it, and then you're getting closer and closer. And like I remember I finally finished like ripping it all up, and I texted him like, it's done. He's like, no way. And like the next day he's like, I can't believe you got that whole floor. He's like, you were by yourself? I'm like, yeah, I don't think I'm gonna be able to stand for a couple days, but
we painted that whole house actually, because I remember we were painting the kitchen.
yeah, I don't. I said I'm done painting at that point after like ripping up that floor and putting in all those 1x2s in the basement, and then tiling the bathrooms, which I did a good job tiling the bathrooms. I looked at them the last time I was over there just a couple weeks ago, and
You gave yourself a pat on the back?
I was like, you know what, I did a pretty good job. But when I first did I had to rip out like a whole section because we tried to get super creative. You know, we had the floor, and I'm like, what if we add this cool little pattern here? And of course, I tried to do that, and it just bombed. So I had to rip out like a couple pieces, and then had to redo it. Like the next day, I remember your dad came by. He's like, it's not good. And I'm like, what? And I went over there. I was like, oh God, it was like wavy. It was terrible. So like,
But you know what we learned? So between those bathrooms and then the orange house bathrooms that Blaine tiled, we picked one style at the time that we liked, and we just copied it. We didn't get, you know, after trying to be a little fancy, we just went, for us at the time was that gray.
And after that, I did one more bathroom, and then I was like, I'm done. You know, I saw
You did
Thomas,
our bathroom here.
I saw Thomas do our master bath upstairs, and I watched him do it, and I'm like, that's why I suck, because he does it a totally different way, and it was like so much better. But anyways, you learn, and that's part of the whole process. You know, you learn, and then you figure out, and then you learn how to rebudget and how to adjust and factor all these things in.
But you know, we're talking about this candidly now, and obviously $100,000. Like, who the heck has $100,000?
I don't even remember how we paid.
Well, that's what I was going to get into, because I was working on the budget. And so a couple things. Number one, we chose to partner up with my parents. So if you're getting into your first or second investment property, that is something that we do suggest, is like try to do a partnership with someone that you really trust, because that was really helpful. And also it cuts the amount of money that you're putting in half, because you're doing it together.
Oh, I remember.
And
now.
so essentially we used a home equity line of credit on our own personal residence for the down payment for this home. But for the actual rehab, we used all of our own money. Like, we had saved up every penny. And I remember, because I started a meetup around this time, and I remember one of the topics in the meetup was, how the heck do I come up with money, and what creative things can I do to buy all the things we need to be able to pay our contractor and buy all the material. And so we ended up, like, all of us applied for a 0% credit card. So all of the appliances, the material, like everything that contractor needed, if it was material, I was like, put it on a credit card. We didn't have the money to pay for that. That was at least $20,000 of stuff on a credit card.
Oh, it was
like
more than that. I do
at least
that
more.
And we used a lot. We used as much of the HELOC as we could, and her parents took a HELOC as
Right.
well.
Mm-hmm.
So like we had two different HELOCs going at the same time. But like Lily said, like we each got 2 or 3 credit cards, and being teachers and they had W-2s, like it's easy to get a credit card.
But that was so scary, you guys. We are not credit card people. We've never been credit card people. Like,
we aren't.
I mean, we use it for points, so we pay off our credit cards at the end of every single month. And to have these different credit cards open and you're like, oh my God. But at least we knew like it was 0% for the majority. I think all of
12
them were.
months.
And we did end up ultimately paying that off.
Well, how? Remember, the goal was to BRRRR. So our goal was we have to refinance this house at the end, and then we'll pay off all the credit cards. That was
I don't think
really-
we ended up, I feel like we just waited. I don't remember. I think because we bought another property with it. I think
Yeah, but I know we had to take
I
some of
remember
that
it was
money.
crunch time at one point, and it was like that final payment was due, and it was like, "Ooh, we ought to pay this."
Yeah, so if you
final
get a
payment.
0% credit card, one thing you need to know is like it's obviously it's great, right? You get 12 months, you can slowly pay it down. There's no interest accruing, but if you miss that payoff time, all the interest that comes back. So like every single month that it would have accrued interest gets added on at the end. So like you have to pay it by that 12th month. And we were freaking out. Like I remember I was like, we need to get this property like refinanced. We need to get this money back. We were still teaching at the time. I was also a realtor at the time. So extra money was coming in from the real estate business at that time, but it was not a lot.
I mean, we were not traveling. We were not spending any money. We weren't buying anything. We were cooking at home.
Kids weren't playing sports yet.
No,
thankfully.
I know, no travel baseball. So we every single dime we made, every extra dime we made went right into the business. But it was stressful. I mean, we got into some heated discussions too, just because it's $100,000. Like,
And granted,
it's
it
so much
wasn't
money.
all at once, right? We paid our contractor a little bit in the beginning to get it going, and then like a little bit in the middle, and then like at the end, and then like all the credit cards.
Within
helped out.
5 months, $100,000 is a lot of money.
Yeah, no,
I
that's why I was just thinking about. I'm like, how did we even do this? Like, I was totally lost. But
we did.
we did, and you know what? We ended up fulfilling our goal with this property. So contractors come in, the kitchen, we put this huge island in once the walls were out. I remember having that conversation too, like thinking, is this going to be weird? Like there's nowhere to put a dining room table.
Someone on your team had this really great idea. So I had this really good idea. I was like, let's just get rid of the dining room. We had a tiny dining room and a tiny kitchen. So it's like, you don't even have a kitchen, you don't have a dining room. It's like,
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, you're going to be, people are going to be sitting at the dining room and they're like going to be, their butts are going to be in the kitchen. So I was just like, let's get rid of it and put in this like massive island and just do that. And we weren't sure,
I was hesitant about it. But then I realized like, so when you walk in the front door, it's like, and we'll show you a picture. Like it looks great now, but like when you walk in, it's like living room, kitchen, dining room. But then there's this tiny little spot. And I'm like, you know what? We could put a little circular like table here just in case, somebody needs that. And we had no intentions of flipping this. We were not going to sell it. We were just going to rent it out, BRRRR it, refinance, and move on.
But we did. A lot of the neighboring houses in this A-class neighborhood, they're really tearing them down and they're building like these big ones up. So when we spoke with Thomas, our contractor, the area where he put the stairs and the plans that we made would actually be where we can ultimately, if we wanted to take off the roof, which we put in a new roof, or did we? No, actually we didn't. So we could add a second floor addition to this house if we wanted to, and then sell it in the future. So we did actually plan that out. And we knew like this would probably not even be for like 10 years or so, right?
But now now you got the wheels turning. Because I forgot about that too. Because where we put the stairs, you can easily add the upper level stairs in that same spot. So,
right.
Great. When you have a great contractor, and sadly, like we haven't used Thomas as much afterwards because his prices are just, it was putting us out of our budget. Like I remember having him quote like 3 or 4 properties after that, and I'm like, Thomas, like I'm not gonna make any money. Like I'm not even gonna be able to BRRRR this with that price. But anyways, he's really smart, really good, but the prices were just too high. But having that future plan of potential to add 4 bedrooms upstairs and 2 more baths and make that a 5-6 bedroom home
Right. And
in
if we do
Downers
it, we will
Grove.
use him because that was his idea. And we'd love to bring him more
Could sell that
business.
house. If we did that, that house would be worth a million easy.
Well, let's do it.
Maybe. But right now it's making us good money.
Yeah.
So let's get into that. So after the house is finished, right, we tiled the bathrooms on our own, painted everything, did a lot of the demo work. We decided to put it up for rent. And I remember I listed it for rent because I'm the realtor, and I put it at like $26.95. So I remember my managing broker looks at me, he's like, $26.95? Are you out of your mind? And I'm like, why? And I was like looking around, I'm like, really? So I'm like, whatever. So I left it, it's my choice. We own the property. And he's like, all right, good luck. So I put it on there. Like a minute later, I get a showing request. And I noticed the showing request was from the agent who sold it to us. And I'm like, hey man, what's going on? He's like, hey, the old seller wants to see it. So like, they went and looked at it. I'm like, oh, go ahead. You guys can take a look. And
I don't think I knew that.
He called me afterwards and he's like, you guys did a phenomenal job. She was so impressed and like, it looks good. He's like, good luck getting the rent, whatever. But we had tenants lined up. I feel like we had 8 or 9 in the first week, and we decided to go with this single woman.
And this was in winter, which in Chicago area,
Yeah.
it is actually really hard to get someone to move in right around the holidays. I mean, I think it is anywhere, but it's really cold. And so we were a little bit worried about that, but it was great.
And you just brought another thought to my head, and it's about the appraiser. Because it was cold and it was snowing. And the one day she was supposed to come, and she's like, oh, I'm not going to come because it's going to snow. And it snowed like 1.5 inches. And then she's like, I'm going to come the next day, and it snowed 6 inches. And I remember I went out there and I'm trying to shovel to give her a spot. And she gets out of her car and, oh, this snow, I hate this. Just like in a bad mood right from the beginning. But anyways, so.
Someone please text him and have a conversation about appraisers.
So tenants are coming, right? This house looks beautiful. It's in an awesome location. It's listed super high, and we're looking at applications. And this single woman comes in. I think she had a daughter, plenty of income. Everything looked good. I just remember like it was a really big driveway, and I'm like, this is a lot to shovel. Like we are not paying for, snow removal and landscaping. Like, is this something you're going to be okay handling? And she's like, oh, yeah, I work for this company. They're just going to do it for me. I'm like, okay, great. So we end up signing the lease with her. That was like March, maybe February. I can't remember the exact date.
No, it was right around the holidays. It was like December.
Oh, it was.
December
That's
15th,
right.
I think.
It was before Christmas.
We were trying to get her in before Christmas and New Year's.
Well, another thing, if you are trying to do the Burr method, you have to have a lease in place in order for the refinance to work. So we were like hustling to get a tenant in. And one big thing you never want to do when you're getting a tenant is rush. Because you start, oh, they're going to be fine. You start, and next thing you know, you're stuck with a really bad tenant. But she was not a bad tenant. She paid on time.
Yeah, she was good.
We did notice that she was not shoveling the driveway, especially in the mid of winter, and it was a bad winter year that year.
I mean, that's her choice.
And then some of the exterior stuff, like with the yard and stuff, she didn't really maintain like she said she was going to. But ultimately, the house was in good shape until she decided to just all of a sudden stop paying.
Yeah, she was late 1 month, but then she ended up paying. I think she was like, like maybe 6 days late, like nothing major, but she was always on time before that. And then by the next month, she was kind of late again. And by like the 15th or so, we're like, what's going on?
So like I've always been in contact with her. We can get into like all the different rental things that we do to help make the property management side of things go a little bit smoother. Like we use Rent Ready as an application for tenants to pay. So we're not collecting cash, we're not using Zelle, just things that make it more professional. But with this tenant, like I've always been a property manager type person who gets probably a little too friendly with my tenants.
That doesn't sound good.
Not like that, Leela. I get to know them. I talk to them. I
He's
tell them all the
too
time.
nice.
I'm very nice. And I want them to have a good experience, because if they're having a good experience, in my mind, that's going to make me have a good experience. And knock on wood, we haven't really been burned by that lately. But at the same time, like sometimes it puts tenants in a position where they can take advantage of you. So you have to like kind of gauge your level of interest. Like I work with a lot of investors who will they don't even want to meet the tenant. They don't want the tenant to know who they are. And I'm the opposite. I'm like shaking their hand. Like, here's my kids. Like, hey, I want you to enjoy this house. And sometimes I think that works in your favor and sometimes it doesn't. But with this woman, all of a sudden, like she's late again. Now, like it's the 15th, she hasn't paid. I'm texting, there's no response. I'm calling her work, nobody's answering, which I found out later that's a family business. So it was like her dad and her uncle. So they saw me calling, they're just ignoring it. And then she finally calls. And I pick up the phone and I'm like, hey, is everything okay? And she's like, well, I had to move. And I'm like, excuse me? And she's like, yeah, I moved to California. I'm like, so the house is empty. She's like, yeah, I had everybody move my stuff out. I'm sorry. I had this opportunity in California. I had to move. And I'm like jumping in my car at the same time, like racing over there to make sure the house wasn't trashed, destroyed, make sure there wasn't a flooded basement. So I don't know how long she was gone. I didn't know what she did.
Because this was a break in her lease. She had a 12-month lease with us and she just left.
Yeah. And just, I like California too, but come on, tell me. And that's another thing. Like, I'm super nice. Like, if she called me up and said, hey, you know what, Blaine, I have this opportunity in California. Like, is there a way I can get out of my lease? I guarantee you I would have worked with her.
Yeah.
But she did not do that. She just left. So, like, race over there. I open up the door. Thankfully, house is perfect. There was no damage. Everything was fine. She left a couple things that were, nothing. I think one was a scooter that we ended up keeping for the kids. She just didn't want it back. But anyways, like she left. So now we're like, oh boy, what are we going to do? We have a mortgage on this property, right? We're paying, I think, $1,200 a month. Luckily, we got rent at $2,700. So we were cash flowing probably $1,300 after some like water, garbage expenses, things like that. But now we're like, okay, what in the world are we going to do? And at this same time, Lily mentioned she started this meetup. And this meetup to me, like, I'm really disappointed that we haven't kept this going. And I really think we should get it back because it's just networking and it's awesome. But tell them a little bit about this meetup that you started and how it led to this behemoth of a business you own now.
Ooh, my God. Well, we had educated ourselves about real estate and, buying properties, fixing them up, refinancing, the whole shebang. We got our finances in a row. We paid off a bunch of stuff. I remember we had paid off our cars and, we got, this loan and we got this money and we're basically ready to do this and to jump in. And then COVID started and all the meetups that they had in Chicagoland just like shut down. And we hadn't even gone to one, but that was something that was recommended. Like, find people in your network. Your people in your network are going to help you.
That is honestly great advice for anybody.
Yeah.
It's free. And some of the relationships that we gained from that meetup have grown. Like, we're good friends with people. We collaborate all the time. We're helping each other out. It has been, it's just been great.
Definitely. And that's the thing. So anyway, so I was looking for something like as a virtual meetup in the area and I couldn't find one. And I'm sure there was one somewhere, but I couldn't really find it. So I started my own and we laughed. We said, you know what, if one person shows up, then at least we get to meet one person that is interested in investing. And you know what? We are too. And the first meetup, I feel like we had like maybe,
It was way more
I
than
don't
I
know,
expected.
10,
Like 12 people
yeah,
or
something like that.
And you just made a post like on Facebook.
Yeah.
Hey, anybody want to like talk about real estate? Like, we're going to start a virtual meetup and like bing, 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 bing.
And here's the thing, you guys.
Cool.
We just started investing. I was not experienced. I was not pretending to be experienced. I was just a regular person saying, hey, I'm interested in doing this. I don't know who's doing this, so I'm going to start it. And people showed up. And then what the magical thing happens is when you do have your own meetup. Now, granted, it can be a lot of work, but if you have your own meetup, most of the people get to know you more than they get to know each other, because especially if it is Zoom or something, a lot of times, I would introduce people, or I would bring up a topic, or we would come up with a topic. A lot of times at the time we created topics that were relevant to our current situation. So, if we were talking about, we were having issues managing our contractors, then that would be the topic. Like, how, what are some things that you do to manage your contractors? How do you make sure that work is done in a timely manner? And people would just chime in and talk about it. So it was a massive
different levels of people too. Like,
yeah.
Not everybody were beginners. We had some people that were joining on that they owned like 10, 12 properties already. So it was a good mix.
Yeah. And then I listened to a podcast, and I was thinking about, since the meetup was virtual for the most part, I was thinking it would make sense to like expand it a little bit to maybe people in other states. And I was listening to a podcast, and they said, well, just invite like big investors, because if you invite an investor to go speak at your meetup, that is you inviting that investor to speak on your stage. And most people that are in real estate are interested in talking about real estate, just like Blaine wants to talk about appraisers. So if anyone has a meetup with that topic, he should be your guy to talk about that. But most investors like to talk about that, and it is really putting them in the spotlight. And so we were really listening to Bigger Pockets. And so I would listen to an episode, and if there was a speaker there that was the guest of the show, I would contact them and be like, hey, would you be interested in speaking at my meetup? And they did. And like,
I couldn't believe it.
It was crazy. Like, so we had so many like huge investors or people with like huge Instagram followings that like, what do they want to talk to me about? But that's the thing. Like,
one couple, they have their own show right now in Hawaii. Like, they came and spoke at our meetup 4 years ago, and they are flipping houses in Hawaii, and they have their own TV show. Like, it's crazy. So, I mean, getting back to the property though, like, this meetup was awesome, right? It was a great experience, and we just lost this tenant. So we're talking to everybody on this meetup, and we're like telling them the story, and Kevin Christensen lights us up. He's like, she just did you a favor. And we're like, what? And he's like, put this thing on Airbnb. He's like, right now, furnish it. And we were like, we've done Airbnb. Like, we didn't even consider it, right? I don't know why, but like we have done Airbnb in Chicago, and we had done Airbnb in Downhurst Grove at our other house just randomly. And like, he's like, do it. I have these houses out on the East Coast. They're in the middle of nowhere. It doesn't matter. I furnish them, and they're booked. He's like, Blaine, they're booked. So we did. So we furnished this house. I mean,
and we went from like making $1,500 net in cash flow to $6,000 to $8,000 net cash flow.
It was unbelievable. I remember, and anybody out there that does short-term rentals, you're probably going to do the same thing on your first property. It's like we finally get it furnished. We get it like pictures, and we get it listed on Airbnb, and we're just like waiting, and we're just like, and the goal was to have it open for Labor Day, like that weekend. We were trying to get it furnished so that we can get a booking for Labor Day weekend, because it's obviously a big.
But there was no booking coming, and there were still some things to do with the property. So we got some pictures up there, but I think the TVs weren't set up.
Yeah, there was some things
there were things that needed to be.
And we didn't
done.
even know what we were really doing. We were just like, all right, throw this in, and then we're like, oh my god, we need this.
So then basically the day before Labor Day weekend, like the evening, we get a booking. So ultimately we have, I don't know, like 12 hours or so, not even, like 10 hours maybe, to get the place ready by the time the guests check in. And it was a work day. It was Friday. I just, the school year just started. So teachers cannot take a day off typically unless there's like a major emergency in
And
the
it's a
beginning of the
holiday
year.
weekend, too.
And it's a holiday weekend. I think you took off for a half day or something. I don't know how you did
I
that.
don't remember.
So my dad took off, but he had major back issues. My mom was taking care of our daughter, which was 3 at the time. And so she went over to the property with her 3-year-old.
We were racing because the booking was for like 8 people, I think. It was for the whole weekend. It was a good chunk of money. We'll have to pull it up and check, but it was a couple grand for that weekend. We're like, whoa, like we're gonna make the rent almost in like one weekend. So like we were hustling as hard as we could. We put Ring doorbells on the front and the back because of course we're like nervous and we didn't know. And then
Oh, and by the way, we got a bunch of furniture from OfferUp
yeah.
because we, of course, didn't really have like the funds to now furnish a home. And so a lot of the bed frames were wooden. They were from OfferUp. So then my mom goes, Blaine, the bed frame is broken. The bed is broken. And
I had to
Blaine
go buy a bunch of 2x4s.
put 2x4s underneath this bed. And honestly, guys, the bed, it's been
still there, right?
It's been like 4
Cosec
years.
construction.
It's still there.
Yeah. I remember like I'm drilling these things in. Like it's like 3:15. These people are checking in at 4 o'clock. I'm like trying to get this bed so that it's not going to fall to the ground. And we did it. And they checked in. And that whole entire weekend, we were just watching the cameras. Don't do that, by the way. Like now we have so many properties. Like I haven't even looked at the cameras. I mean, I look at them every once in a while just to see, like, make sure like there isn't like 50 people walking in the property.
But wait, you forgot the best part of the story. So I'm at work and I'm like, hey guys, I group text them. And I'm like, I think somebody must have somebody clicked that breakfast was included.
Oh, God.
So Blaine at the
That was me. That was me.
So Blaine,
Breakfast included.
Blaine made the listing and he checked the box saying that there was breakfast that was going to be served. And now it's like 2 hours or probably an hour before check-in. And my dad, who actually took off, but he went to the chiropractor or whatever because he had like major back issues. He goes to
Wait, no, because I text the tenant, the guest.
Oh.
And I said, hey, just so you know, you're our first guest. Breakfast is included. I can offer you $100 or like a $50 gift card to like this really good restaurant down the street, or we can go and get you some stuff so you guys can cook breakfast. Hoping that they would just say, give us the gift card. It's fine. Nope. Yeah, we'll take eggs and bacon and sausage and potatoes. So Lily's dad had to go to the store.
So he's at the store. He's so annoyed because he's trying to get all these things done. And like the Wi-Fi went out. Like, so you guys are like trying to set that up. And then the Wi-Fi is having issues. So he was setting that up. And I'm like, I call him to go to the store and he's getting eggs. And I'm like, Dad, but if you're getting eggs and bacon and stuff, you have to make sure you get like oil and salt and pepper. And he's like, whatever.
Yelling
he's
in
like
Polish.
so annoyed.
Yeah, so we did that. And
So
the guests enjoyed it.
Don't click breakfast included, guys.
So then the other thing, we're brand new. We did Airbnb in the past, but like we weren't really thinking about it. And then we start like looking at these guys that booked the place. And then we found out they booked it for some festival in downtown Chicago, which really is rare for this property. We don't get many people that are actually visiting Chicago. They're usually staying in the burbs. So like we're watching them leave and they're getting ready. They're leaving at like 7 p.m. They're coming back at like 4 a.m. And like I'm looking at the cameras. I'm like, oh my God, they're bringing girls back and all this stuff. I'm like, oh my gosh, like what are we gonna do? Like, are these neighbors gonna cause problems already? But they didn't really have a party, right? They just, they brought some girls back. They brought some, they're having fun, whatever.
Blaine was worried about those 2x4s because there were girls in the group and then more girls came back and Blaine was very concerned about that bed.
Cosec construction, baby. Can handle it. No, so anyways, booking went through. They checked out on time. They cleaned up after themselves. There was no problems, no issues. And we just pedaled to the metal Airbnb the rest of the way.
And actually, by that Monday or Tuesday, we got another booking, and it was a month-long booking for a construction crew.
Oh, yeah.
So that was just another piece there for us where we realized, like, there is something here. Like this is great. It
and
makes
that was
sense.
what 3.5 years ago. So we've been running this as a short-term rental. Now it's more of a mid-term rental, and what that means is instead of allowing bookings for like 1, 2, 3 to 7 days, we allow bookings 30 days minimum. So you have to book at least a month, and a lot of people are worried about that, but we have 3 houses in this area now, and all 3 of them are booked solid, and the numbers are really good. Where as a short-term rental, we're going to gross between 9 and 10,000 depending on the month, and then you got all the cleaning fees because you're going to get 6, 7, maybe 8 cleanings. So you subtract all that, but on the midterm side, there's no cleanings other than at the beginning and at the end, but the rent is a lot different. I think we're getting $5,800 a month at one, $5,500, and like $5,200 at the other.
But still, so
good.
much more than that 26.90.
Even right now,
whatever it
I
was.
think we could rent those houses unfurnished for probably $3,000, somewhere in that range, maybe $3,200, because they are smaller homes. But that was the craziness that really. I keep saying pedal to the metal, but that's Lily, right? She's pedal to the metal over here. And what did we do after this Airbnb, like proof of concept, like started making us money? Well, now we just started doing it at all of our newer properties that we started purchasing, which we'll totally get into that later when we're going to talk about the difference between long-term rental, short-term rental, mid-term rental, and how you like not only run the numbers to understand how much net cash flow you're going to get, but how you find a property that's going to work. And we're going to get into all that later.
And now, it's crazy because we have so many systems in place now and our team in place where we are actually like managing 50 of these listings.
That's why I call
across
it a behemoth. Lily's got a behemoth of a
four
business
different
over there.
states, and it's doable, but it's crazy. But we learned so much, and I strongly believe like we would not be as successful as we have been if it wasn't for all the mistakes that we made. Because even when we did jump into the Airbnb space, Blade did lightly mention that we did try this before. We tried this with our old condo that was right near Wrigleyville before we had kids. So this was a few years back. And I had even cleaned it. Blaine did all the handyman work. So we definitely had a background. And then this time around, we knew that if we're going to do it, we're going to do it right. And we're going to be the best in our market. And we are.
We definitely are. So that is a gist of COVID, crushing it with COVID part 2, with our house that we bought. We call it Maple, the Maple House. But one thing that I want to talk about before we go really quick is just growth, right? And that was the very beginning of us really trying to grow. And one thing that I feel personally is when people get old, right? We don't grow old, and I'm a lot older than Lily here is, but if you don't continue to grow as far as like pushing yourself, that's when like age sets in. I feel like it's when you start seeing the the signs of aging. So we're always trying to grow and keep ourselves motivated. So if you're out there and you're feeling yourself becoming complacent at what you're doing and just kind of like happy with being good at whatever it is you're doing, like try to come up with something that can help you grow. If it's a hobby or it's real estate or anything, because that's going to like just put this drive into you, and it's going to help I feel, in my opinion, it's going to help push back the aging process within your body and in your life. So keep that in mind. Like we could have easily took that house and said, we're making $1,500 a month. Like, let's just find another tenant. Like that's good. Right. But we heard this and we were like, you know what? This is a chance for us to grow. And had we not done that, who knows? Would we really be in this spot right now? Would Lily have 50 short-term rental listings? would we have 25 properties, or would we just have 3 and been like, you know what?
There
That's
there
good.
would be no way that we would have as many properties as we do, because we had so much cash flow coming in that we were just taking all that money, and then boom, we bought another property. Boom, we bought another property with
And
it.
we're going to tell you about the other house in Downers Grove, and we're going to explain to you how that house paid for 100% of our Wisconsin cabin that we have in Wisconsin Dells. That house and the money that it brought in paid for probably 90% of that entire project, from down payment to complete reconstruction. And now it's
And
one
that
of our
was
great cash
about
flows.
$80,000, I think.
It might even have been more
Yeah.
than that. So thank you very much for listening. Crush It with COVID Part 2 has come to an end. COVID is gone. We're all happy, ready to grow more. Leela,
See you
by the way,
next
Leela, I
time.
want to tell you, you look fantastic.
Oh.
We're kind of like a little bit of matching here. I got some pink birds on mine. We're very
you.
spring today.
We are. I'm excited. It's beautiful out. It's been like 80, which is crazy.
Yeah.
This time of year.
Odd for Chicagoland. But we'll see you guys next time.
Bye.
Adios.